Hello, in my last video I took a look at the Pavo Pico, and since I made my video, I put in over 80 flights on this guy. I really like it. It's become my most flown quad since I've gotten it. I printed out this little carrying case with it, and I can carry 6 batteries with it. It's super portable, it's really awesome, and I was going to make a review video on it, but then I saw that Beta FPV kind of quietly announced the Pavo 20. And I figured since I like the Pavo Pico so much, I'd get the Pavo 20 and I'd try and compare them and see which one I like better. And so, of course, I haven't opened it yet, and we're going to open it and take a look and see what it's like. Now, in my last video on the Pavo Pico, I suspected that they replaced the flight controller on the Pavo Pico Batch 2 because there were some power issues. People were crashing a lot with it. But it turns out that's not the case. The reason they put this flight controller in the Batch 2 is because that flight controller was already in development for this guy, the Pavo 20. So these two, Pavo Pico Batch 2, Pavo 20, they use the same exact flight controller. It's the 2 to 3S flight controller, and now we know why it's 3S capable, because this Pavo 20 is designed for a 3S battery. And so yeah, these are very similar on paper, at least. I'm gonna have to actually fly them to compare them. The Pavo 20 is 20 because it has 2.02 inch props on it. And what is this? An LED strip. This is nice. Isn't advertised on the product page that it includes an LED strip, so I'll take it. Props, these are bi-blade, so 2-inch bi-blade props versus, I think these are like 45mm tri-blades on the Pavo Pico. We do get a VTX mounting bracket for 20 by 20 VTXs, so if you want to put like the Vista, Cadex Vista in it, you can do that. The Pavo Pico does support this too, but it doesn't come with it. You have to buy like a $15 frame kit to get this little mounting bracket, but I'm glad that they include this with the Pavo 20. And then we get, let's see, here's our main little O3 cage, and they only get one of these this time. The Pavo Pico included 2 of the Pavo Pico versions. And then we get the quad, and notably missing from the Pavo 20 is there's no battery and there's no ND filter, the lens protector for the O3. So the Pavo 20 and the Pavo Pico, they both cost about the same, about $110. So you might think that the Pavo 20 is, you should get that. It costs exactly the same. But the lack of battery and ND filter, that's a lot of value lost there. That's like 20 bucks in value lost. Anyways, it's a quad. And first of all, let's just do a little size comparison. It's my first time holding the Pavo 20. So obviously it's a little bit bigger. The motors are just slightly spaced apart, but the props are quite a bit bigger. There's a lot more prop area. But realistically speaking, I feel like this isn't going to be too much of a difference. Now, I will say that my main use case of this Pavo Pico was flying out my car window. That's why I ended up flying this so many times, because it's so convenient on the Pavo Pico to just like roll down my car windows and just like send this outside, and I'm like, you know, nice inside my like air conditioned car. Like if it's raining, well, I can't fly this in the rain, but if it's hot, if it's cold, the car is temperature controlled, and I could just fly this right out my passenger side window, and that's no issue. And so I'm gonna have to test and see if this Pavo 20 can do the same thing, because the increase in size and weight will affect it just a little bit. Right, and so, oh, on my Pavo Pico, you can see I already cut the battery strap. I didn't use the friction fit. I'm using my own Velcro. On the Pavo 20, they're just forcing you to use the battery strap. I'm fine with that. Here's a little connector for the LED strip. And yeah, the flight controller is exactly the same as the Pavo Pico Batch 2. Now, one other thing I wanted to take a look at before moving my O3 over to this guy is the little soft mount bracket for the O3. And yeah, this is such a huge feature. So this is the screw, let's hope my camera focuses, that you use to soft mount the O3 cage onto the Pavo 20, and this is a proper step screw. So there's only partially threaded bit at the bottom, which will thread into, let's see, oh, it'll thread into brass inserts on here. That is such a nice feature. So what that means is when you screw this through the soft mounted jelly onto the frame, you can't over tighten it. That's as far as that screw goes in. That means it won't be too tight and you won't get as much jello. So a big problem with the Pavo Pico, and it is one that I did experience, was that it just uses these cheap little machine screws, like Phillips head machine screws, basically, to soft mount the cage onto the frame. And if you tighten it too much, even just by like one turn, it it compresses it down too much and it negates the effect of the soft mounting, and so you get jello in the flight. And so I have to very very carefully unscrew everything and fine tune it, so there's basically no tension like clamping the two parts together. So now this little frame is purely just riding on, like, gravity basically, and the soft mount keeps it from vibrating too much. So it takes a little bit of finesse to get the Pavo Pico to sit just right, and it looks like they solved that issue on the Pavo 20 with proper brass inserts on the cage here. The Pavo Pico doesn't have it, and the little step screws. So that is a very much of a welcome change. So hopefully that means it'll be jello free right now to the box. Alright, well, I've taken a look at everything I wanted to take a look at. Now I'm going to extract the O3 from this and put it on this guy. Oh, here's a better visual representation of what I just showed. So up top here is the Pavo Pico screw that holds the cage on, and you can see it's just this very absolutely tiny little machine screw, Phillips head, that's just screwed in all the way, so you have no guidance on how tight to make it. And the bottom is the Pavo 20, which is a proper hex head step screw that can only be screwed in a certain amount. So very nice. Alright, the Pavo 20 is all assembled. Didn't take too long. Just make sure you have a decent set of tweezers, because the parts on this is absolutely tiny. There we go. And the batteries I'm going to use, thankfully I have some on hand, are going to be these Genzace Tadu 550 3-cell packs. And I haven't tried it yet, but yeah, it looks like these are going to fit just fine. There we go. This guy is ready to set up. So I'm going to plug into Betaflight, set up my radio, bind it, whatnot, and then after that, it's time to take it for a flight. Okay, and this is my very, very first flight with the Pavo 20. You're looking at the goggles to DVR footage, and I'll switch over to the O3 stabilized footage later. And the first thing that I definitely noticed when taking this thing out was the prop guards in view on the bottom left and the bottom right of the footage. This is kind of a big issue because the Pavo 20 is a Cinewhoop. The whole point of a Cinewhoop is to capture nice, clean cinematic footage, and having the prop guards in view kind of ruins that. And so I don't know why they designed it to have the prop guards in view. The Pavo Pico doesn't have this issue at all. No matter how low you put the camera, you can put the camera completely level on the Pavo Pico, and there are no prop guards in view. Right now in the Pavo 20, it's as low as it goes, but it's not even level. It's like 5 degrees up tilt, and you still get prop guards. And the thing is, that like ruins the cinematic footage. And if you can't use it for cinematic flying, then you're just using it for fun. If you're using it for fun, you might as well just get something that performs better, like a 3-inch like open like arm quad. And the performance is definitely a lot better than the Pavo Pico. You see here I'm doing flips and rolls and stuff, and I'm testing out the prop wash. And there is a little bit of prop wash, you just saw right there, but it is much better than the Pavo Pico. I feel like I actually have, some power to spare to power through moves and such. It's still not as good as like a proper big open prop, like 3-inch quad. But it's a lot more flyable, and it's a lot more fun to fly than the Pavo Pico. So that's good. It's just strange that, like, I don't know where this quad would really fit, because you can't fly it cinematic like the Pavo Pico because the prop guard's in view, but it's also not as good as, a freestyle quad as like a 3-inch freestyle, like my $100 baby ape. Technically, it does fly better than this because it has big, huge 3-inch props. Now let's switch on over to the O3 onboard DVR recording, and because of the gyro flow stabilization, it does crop in the video a little bit, so the prop guards are a little bit less noticeable, but it's still definitely there. I'm gonna experiment with maybe just cutting the prop guards off, like those little corners there, so it's out of the view of the camera. I'm of course gonna get less like crash protection, but at least the footage might be usable. So that's what I'm going to experiment with next. The other thing I want to say is that the flight times are a huge improvement over the Pavo Pico. Realistically for me, I was getting 2 to 3 minutes of usable flight time. Basically, you don't want to go any further than 3 minutes because if you take too long to land, you might kill your battery. So usually on the Pavo Pico for me, I'm coming in to land at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And so I have a nice safe buffer. So when I actually disarm, I'm at 3 minutes. On the other hand, with this Pavo 20, I'm getting a pretty solid 5 minutes. So I come in to land at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and I land by 5 minutes. So I'm getting almost twice as much flight time with the Pavo 20. That is really convenient. I'd say it's the perfect amount. 5 minutes is usually the perfect amount of flight time I find for most quads, and so I'm really pleased with the flight times of the Pavo 20. The short flight times of the Pavo Pico, it was just so limiting because you actually had to plan out, like, can I fly around this lake in the amount of battery time I have left, and you have to think ahead for all that stuff. But that's not really much of an issue with the Pavo 20. All right, and after thinking about it for a while, I realized there's another use case for the Pavo 20, and that's using it as a kind of like an exploration drone. You just go anywhere at any time, and you can get it up in the air within 2 minutes and just fly and explore, and you could just be like a bird and just fly anywhere. That's actually kind of how I was using my Pavo Pico, and that's how I got 80 flights on the Pavo Pico within a month, because it was just so convenient to bring around anywhere with me. Just throw it in my backpack, and if I have a couple minutes to fly, I could just fly it right out my car window. And that's what I did with the Pavo Pico, and that's what I'm doing with the Pavo 20, and it's working just as well. I only have about 10 flights on the Pavo 20 right now, but it is a lot more convenient to have that much more flight time, because it is kind of hairy, getting in and out tight spaces like the car window on either drone, and so I waste 30 seconds or 45 seconds just lining up for that. And so having the extra couple minutes on the Pavo 20 to go out and explore is actually a huge difference. And as well as just being able to climb up high. In the footage you just saw a couple seconds ago, I was a couple of stories high, and that's a lot more easier to do on the Pavo Pico or on the Pavo 20 than it is on the Pavo Pico. And the prop guards in view is just, I guess, if I'm just flying like a bird, I don't really care. I'm not selling this footage. It's just for me to cosplay as a bird and just have fun, and it does work really well for that. And so I guess the prop guards in view maybe isn't such a big deal. In the end, I am going to keep my O3 on the Pavo 20, and I think that just speaks to, which one is better, at least for me. Definitely if you're doing proper cinematic footage to capture for commercial purposes, you're doing real estate photography, you're actually selling your footage, then of course go for the Pavo Pico, easy, no hands questions down. But if you're just having fun, you want to fly anywhere, go anywhere, that's the kind of flying I'm doing right now, and the Pavo 20 just fits all of that. So yeah, there you go. Thanks for watching my first little look and comparison of the Pavo 20 to the Pavo Pico. I am going to be playing around a little bit more. I did notice that the Pavo 20's mounting bracket is exactly the same size as the Pavo Pico's. So I'm wondering if I can transplant the nice non-jello mount to the Pavo Pico. So I may be experimenting with that in the future. So there you go. If you like this video, please just give me a subscribe. That would help me a lot. And thanks for watching.